Chapter 4. Xiao Tajin, Xiaolan's biological father, was a rough man capable of many tasks who can do anything but communicates poorly. His strength and resilience made him a valuable asset to the elder in Xia family. Xiaolan thought of him as nearly lacking in intellect, as he was solely preoccupied with extended family while neglecting him. Among the three brothers, Xiao Tajin is the second and the only one without a son, which contributed to his feelings of inadequacy. He often directed his frustrations at Lu Fan, and it was not uncommon for him to engage in drunken fights. Even his own daughter, Xiaolan, was viewed as a burden in his eyes. It is understandable that Xiao Tajin failed to recognize Xiaolan's worth, as the beauty ideals of that time were quite narrow. Xiaolan was beautiful, but her alluring looks appealed primarily to young men, while the older generations frowned upon her looks. A mere glance was enough for them to presume that she was not a housewife material. Marrying her would likely lead to lots of family problems. In contrast, her cousin Zi, with her oval face, thick eyebrows, and large eyes, exuded an air of dignity and poise, presenting herself as a virtuous young woman. Although Xiaolan was perceived as lacking intelligence, her cousin Zi, who was not particularly bright in her early years, experienced a remarkable transformation after completing junior high and secured admission to a university in Beijing this year. The Xiao family regarded her as a valuable asset. While Xiao Tajin may have regard for his own daughter, he held deep affection for his niece. The hard-working men of the Xiao family labored in repairing the riverbank to generate income for Zi, who left for Beijing with over 500 yuan contributed by the family. Concerned about her potential spending in the city, the entire family dedicated themselves to supporting her higher education. Xiaolan, on the other hand, suffered. She didn't even go to the hospital after hitting her head, and her head were bandaged casually at a nearby clinic. This situation starkly illustrates the divergent paths they have taken, despite sharing the same surname. Thinking about the original owner made President Xia sigh deeply. This, who excelled in both character and academics, proved to be quite challenging to manage. While those from rural areas may lack understanding, President Xia knew that in this era, college tuition was free, and students received monthly living allowances sufficient to support their needs. In 1983, attending school with 500 yuan was undoubtedly signified a luxurious lifestyle. While Ziyu enjoyed a life of privilege, Xiaolan remained unaffected by such circumstances. When she observed other Xia family members, she noticed that none of them were as thin as Lu Fan, so thin that one would have to struggle to extract even a small amount of oil or water from her. In contrast, Ziyu's mother, despite her patched clothing, possesses a healthy appearance, and her hands are significantly healthier than those of Lu Fang, which are marred by numerous small cracks. Xiaolan's family endured significant exploitation. While Xiao Tajin was willing to become Xiao's family ox, Xiaolan felt injustice on behalf of Lu Fan. When father returned, we shall see whether he favors his niece or his daughter. It remained unclear if Xiao Tajin was aware of Xiaolan's hitting her head against the pillar. He always returned after work, and Xiaolan was resolute in giving the father a chance. Lu Fan sensed something amiss and feared that Xiaolan might oppose her father. Of course your father loves you, but your cousin is. Xiaolan smiled, causing Lu Fan's confidence to falter as she continued speaking. In rural settings, it was typical for uncles to show preferences for their nephews over their daughters. However, Lu Fan had never encountered a situation where a man favored his niece more than his own child. Xiao Tajin indeed harbored resentment toward Xiaolan, as her birth led to Lu Fan's health decline, restricting her ability to have more children, which resulted in him blaming his daughter. A silence enveloped the mother and daughter. Xiaolan looked at the rundown house and remarked, "I will go collect some firewood." She planned to explore Dai village for opportunities to earn money. Without financial resources, her confidence would falter, making even the most promising plans impractical. Dai village was notably impoverished. In 1983, it was challenging to find a village in the country that was not struggling financially. Poverty is deeply rooted in both the geographical and historical context, exacerbated by the constraints of the time. Seeking food from Mother Nature was a matter of survival. As the sun set, several women were seen washing clothes by the river. True to its name, Dai village had a large river flowing through it. In terms of resources, the fish in the river were unclaimed and can be sold for profit. Villagers were often reluctant to sell fish in the city. Although the fish were naturally occurring, this section of the river was considered village property, collectively owned by the residents. It was permissible to occasionally catch fish for personal consumption, but selling them was prohibited. Xiaolan felt no ethical dilemma about secretly catching fish for sale. The only assets she and Lu Fen possessed were 10 kilograms of sweet potatoes. What moral standards can one maintain when confronted with hunger? It was regrettable that she lacked the necessary tools and skills to catch fish by hand. The river banks were lined with tall, dense white reeds. Had it been May, Xiaolan might collected some reed leaves to sell to urban residents for making rice dumplings. However, with the Dragon Boat Festival long past, demand for such items was minimal, rendering the effort hardly worthwhile for the meager returns. Could she weave mats and backpacks for sale? According to the memories of the previous owner, many individuals in Day Village were adept at these crafts. During off-season, families would weave straw mats and backpacks. Unfortunately, these items did not sell well in rural areas and would struggle to compete in urban markets. Nowadays, traditional crafts attracted little interest. City dwellers were more inclined towards meat, eggs, milk, and other agricultural and livestock products. Xiaolan stared vacantly at the river. How could it be that she, a senior executive of a large company, possibly faced starvation in 1983? To cut ties with the Xiao family, she must be able to sustain herself and Lu Fen. Before those 10 kilograms of sweet potatoes were all eaten up, she must acquire some initial capital. Given the limited opportunities in the countryside, she must seek prospects in the city. The movement of goods can generate profits, but rural residents have little to offer. Aside from industrial products like matches, soap, and fertilizers, rural inhabitants in 1983 were self-sufficient. A group of women by the river pointed at Xiaolan. While contemplating her options, Xiaolan collected dry branches by the river, disregarding the gossiping women. She preferred not to waste her energy on argument, so she continued on to the reed beach adjacent to the cowshed, a location that villagers typically avoided due to its unpleasant odor. As she moved further in, 2 wild ducks suddenly burst forth from the reeds. They flapped their wings and quacked, seemingly inviting Xiaolan to chase after them. Her eyes lifted up. How could 2 wild ducks try to fool her? This was clearly a diversion. Indeed, after searching through the reeds, she stumbled upon a concealed duck nest. Nestled within, crafted from soft grass, were several green-shelled duck eggs clustered together. President Xia, who had signed contracts amounting to hundreds of millions of yuan, smiled broadly at the sight of the wild duck eggs, lifting them one by one to examine them in the light. All were fresh, unhatched eggs. There were 12 in total. Living near the mountains allows one to benefit from both terrestrial and aquatic resources. In 1983, she knew she could sustain herself by relying on the reeds along the riverbank. Resisting the urge to continue searching the reed field, she gathered the 12 wild duck eggs and returned with a bundle of dry firewood to the old, dilapidated house. "Mom, let's roast some sweet potatoes?" Only well-fed can you muster the energy to work.